Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Making Seamless Sales Show. Welcome, everybody that's live, or if you're listening to the replay of the show on any of our channels. Coming to you tonight live from Mars, Pennsylvania. This is episode 9 of the Making Seamless Sales Show with special guest Peter Cohan, creator of the Great Demo Methodology, which is part of my consultative sales portfolio, and then I deliver as a certified partner. We'll get to Peter here after the first break. I just have a few things that I wanted to cover and also set up for our time together with Peter shortly here. With permission from Peter, I've referenced great demo concepts, and Peter actually wrote one of the 3 forwards for my book with the same name as the show, Making Seamless Sales. And in today's episode, we're going to dive deeper into his ideas for doing discovery, leading to great demo, which are the books that I have to my right, as well as draw from his new book, Suspending Disbelief, which is a compilation of stories that Peter tells in workshops and that he's gathered from life encounters, including the origin of the term harbor tour. So we may visit that briefly as we get into Peter's session in a little bit here. I'm Art Fromm, founder and president of Team Sales Development. And the purpose of this show and really everything that I'm doing right now is to share ideas based on my 10 years of pre-sale, sales, and sales management experience, leading to 25 years now of sales enablement. I've curated key interconnected concepts for my whole consultative selling portfolio, including Great Demo, and I offer it in the book. So tonight we'll more into that portion of the portfolio. Before we get into tonight's show, I'd like to give a big thanks to last week's guest on episode 8, which ran September 25th, Jerry Timmis, the sales rep from the Smith's story in the Making Seamless Sales book. So Jerry and I talked about the cornerstone incident that shaped both Jerry's sales career and really was a big inspiration behind the book. Together, we revisited High Stakes Deal with Smith's Industries, where Jerry was coming in late. Um, he had only one shot, truly, to earn trust and to win. And indeed, he did. So, what we covered was slowing down to go fast is very critical. And you might have heard this expression, which I actually really like. I think it's from the military, is slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So that's part of the thing that Jerry learned, and we as the pre-sales team helped him with, and we talked about that on the show, is that slowing down in order to accelerate quickly is what was critical. So Jerry explained how it was challenging but essential to slow down to uncover the true needs of the client instead of just guessing. And we are both convinced that if we had just guessed, we would not have won that deal. So the approach that Jerry took, that we took together, which seemed like a long shot opportunity and turned it into a lucrative recurring revenue opportunity for him and a launch pad for his successful career at Oracle and Salesforce. And as I just learned last week, and I did not know this until we were on the show, that deal that Jerry and I worked on 25 years ago apparently is that client is still a client of Parametric Technology even to this day. So way long after both of us had moved on and even now. The second thing we talked about very quickly here was to avoid the temptation to rush to a demo. So this is a similar concept, and today we're going to be diving into this more with Peter. We touched on some practical strategies that sales and pre-sales can work on together to develop a solution presentation or technical proof, whatever you want to call it, that engages both technical and business decision makers and provides value far beyond the quick hit generic demo. So watch for more of that as Peter will join us in just a little bit. And then the power of partnership was the third main topic that Jerry and I talked about, how the pre-sales and sales duo builds the credibility. So he was a relatively new salesperson. I was running the pre-sales team at the time. And the way that that credibility and working together can accelerate our careers and lead to long-term success. So you could see all the details about this show and access more resources at teamsalesdevelopment.com. Look for the events and articles page. By the way, a couple things I want to point out on that page that you can check out is, first of all, photos and video of the NASDAQ billboard event that I attended a week ago Monday, where my team sales development was featured up on the NASDAQ billboard. So that's on that website now. Also, check out the information about the Presales Collective podcast, which just went up on the website last week as well. Now, what's interesting about that, was recorded with Jack Cochran and Matthew James, and I have received dozens and dozens of connection requests and numerous comments about that interview. In fact, somebody just literally called me today, just out of the blue, which I give kudos to them for just picking up the phone and calling me. And they said, I just listened to that interview and I was so inspired about it. I wanted to pick your brain about a couple things because I'm trying to figure out a couple things that I need to do. So check that out. It seems to have had a lot of impact, and I'd love to get your feedback and certainly connect more on that. And then finally, please help us out with pre-registration for the upcoming Blue Talks compilation book. So I belong to Blue Talks. This is the organization that helped me get on the NASDAQ billboard and a bunch of other stuff. This is the volume 12. It's a compilation book with a bunch of different authors. I'm going to be in volume 14, and the pre-sale page is up on my website. We'd love to get the pre-sales set up for this, where you can sign up for the book, which is going to feature a foreword written by none other than John Gray, who's the author of Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. Now, why that's significant is because I am a man from Mars. I live in Mars, Pennsylvania. So, but also what I've done is I've written a chapter in the Business Life in the Universe, volume 14, that discusses common disconnects when it comes to persuading stakeholders or others that are trying to make a decision. So that's the whole idea was, we communicate differently. What can we do to communicate better? And the name of my chapter is The Art of Persuasion. So how you can avoid common disconnects or overcome them. So again, all of this, including where you can listen to the show and previous Making Seamless Sales shows, is available on the events and articles page of Team Sales Development. Now, just a little background on how Peter and I met, which will set the stage for our discussion today. Back around 2005, I believe it was, when Peter had just started with Great Demo, a couple years in, I was working with a company called ASK Learning. It was a global learning company. And Peter and I, as it turns out, separately, because we didn't know each other then, we, along with others, were both bidding on a contract to provide some consultative sales skills for a client. Somehow, I found out that Peter was also bidding on the contract. So I looked him up to see what he was all about. And out of curiosity, I think it was both curiosity and also maybe a bit of competitive strategy, I went and somehow found him and I liked what I saw, what he was doing. And I recall trying to join his blog, email list, or whatever the equivalent was at the time, and I got blocked. And we joke about it now, but apparently, since I was with a competing company, I wasn't able to join it. It was so interesting because after that, I was just busy with doing whatever I was doing, and I kind of forgot about Peter and all that. And then in 2016, I got a note from Peter, and when he comes on, he can maybe help me remember. I think it was through LinkedIn, and Peter was asking me essentially if I wanted to generate more revenue or something to that effect. So, being curious and almost instantly recalling the previous time that I ran into Peter, I had a couple of thoughts. One is, what's the catch? And two is, how much is this going to cost me? So I responded to Peter and I told him that, he told me his offer was totally legitimate. We talked about it, had a great catch up and a laugh over our previous run-in back in the day. And he told me that he was growing and growing substantially and had already added one person, was looking for some more help. And he said that I came up on his radar. Now, potentially, and I'm not sure if we've 100% confirmed this yet, but due to work that I was doing or because of my presence on LinkedIn or whatever, but it might have been through John Care because I have been doing a lot with John Care, and Peter and John collaborated a lot because they kind of grew their businesses up somewhat together and were complementary. Um, I was told by Peter that he had found me. So once we talked and everything else, and I agreed that I definitely wanted to add that to my portfolio. And after seeing Peter in action a few times and co-delivering a workshop, I came on board as a certified Great Demo partner. And I'm happy to report I still deliver it as part of my portfolio to this day. And it's one of the most enjoyable workshops that I deliver. It's very, very great. It's also quite profound, as you're going to see when we talk to Peter after the break, in terms of the essence of it and the impact of it. So this meshes with the critical timing. Meeting Peter and coming on board with Great Demo meshes with the critical timing I described back in episode 5 of this podcast when I had on Anil Shah. Now, what happened was I had that long-term client that after 10 years in 2015, inadvertently, I believe, or so it seems, put the proven sales opportunity snapshot methodology that I was implementing for them on hold. So my longtime client put it on hold. I had just met Peter in 2016, and I had an opportunity in 2016 to get back in to this client that had put me on hold after working with them for 10 years. So I used my newly mastered Great Demo methodology to plan and deliver what initially was supposed to, and you can tune into the previous episode to hear all the details, but was supposed to be a 30-minute meeting. It wound up being 15 minutes because of the WebEx or whatever. And then as it turned out, the guy was late. And so it wound up being a 10-minute meeting that I had to win over this senior VP of sales who had basically iced my solution a year and a half earlier. And I was able to, with the Great Demo methodology, having done my homework and properly prepared what we're going to discuss, a situation slide, I covered that with him based on what the team had told me. And literally in 6 minutes, he said, "That's exactly what I want, and go make it happen." And I was back in there again because of Great Demo. And I've been back in there ever since. So this is now a 20-year long running customer that I've had, which I got back in there because I got to learn Great Demo and used it to connect with the SVP of sales, who was basically a year and a half earlier my arch enemy because he didn't want it. And by the way, he became a huge supporter of Sales Opportunity Snapshot. So I also found the developer who created SOS app for me because Peter had given me a Great Demo lead, a new lead that turned out to be a D365 solution provider, and I needed to develop that app for this customer that I was now back into. So the rest is history. Anil Shah, who's in that episode at CloudFronts, was the one that did the development. So the moral of the story is you never know when you run into somebody later in your career that you ran into previously, and where those connections will take you could be quite interesting. So after the break, we're going to get Peter on here and we're going to dive into his wisdom around all things having to do with Great Demo, doing discovery, and suspending disbelief. We'll see you right after the break.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a high-achieving, growth-oriented leader? Are you interested in developing your authentic leadership while creating a healthy, inclusive workplace? Hi, I'm Dr. Mira Brancu, host of The Hard Skills, on talkradio.nyc at 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, where we discuss how leaders develop the hard skills needed to make a greater impact. We interview experts, have live coaching, and tackle these challenges. Listen to The Hard Skills on Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a purpose-driven individual looking for deeper healing, clarity, and growth? Welcome to the Expansion Room, a transformative space for purpose-driven individuals. I'm Siobhan Larice, host, licensed therapist, and coach. Join me every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
All right, everybody, welcome back. And it is my pleasure to introduce Peter Cohan. Peter, if you could come on to the video and unmute.
I should be there.
There you are. Hello there, Peter. So
Good
this is my
afternoon.
longtime grade demo partner and colleague. And just a quick introduction, and this is the way that Peter loves to use this catch line, so he suggested it for the introduction for him. Have you ever seen a bad software demo or suffered insufficient discovery? Welcome, Peter Cohan, the founder and author of Great Demo, Doing Discovery, and as I mentioned before, Suspending Disbelief. Peter helps software organizations achieve their pre-sales, sales, and marketing objectives by making their discovery conversations competitively outstanding and their demos crisp, compelling, and surprisingly effective. Peter has experience as an individual contributor, manager, and C-level team member in marketing, sales, and business development. And he's been and continues to be a prospect and, importantly, a customer of various technologies or other things that he consumes. So, Peter, welcome to the Making Seamless Sales Show.
Many thanks. And man, I sound good.
Of course, because you are one of the goats, right? All right.
Goats.
So,
do you remember when goat meant something else entirely?
yes,
Like the opposite of goat?
right. There's a lot of those things that have changed their meaning over the years, haven't they? So
true.
just to get us started, in case some of the audience somehow or another doesn't know who you are, just briefly describe kind of how you got to where you're at and your current focus.
How I got to where, well, I was born in a log cabin in 1862. Wait, that's the wrong origin story. In a nutshell, I was the customer buying a CRM system a number of years ago. And as a result of being a customer, I suddenly had the scales fall from my eyes with respect to organizations, vendors who were doing insufficient discovery and then inflicting 2-hour or longer demos on their customers, in this case, me. And as a result of doing this, or I should say experiencing this, I got the team together and said, hey guys, what did you think about the demos we just suffered through? And it was 5 vendors, each with a 2-hour demo. And what do you think they said? What do you think the team said?
There's a lot of work to do there.
They said things like, it was awful, it was terrible. They didn't understand our needs at all. It was linear, it was painful. They never got to the stuff we needed to see. And then I said, hey guys, I've got bad news. We have been doing the same thing to our prospects and customers. We got to get to the point early in the demos. We've got to align the demos for the specific job titles that are in the room or the virtual room. We have to do the last thing first. And that's how the methodology was born.
Awesome. Excellent. So I think you heard some of my introduction there, and we don't need to go into the gory details, but one thing that you did say that in the that you did cover in your the book about the suspending disbelief and the stories and all those things was the origin of Harbor Tour. And that's going to be one of my first discussion points and questions here. So maybe just set us up a little bit with that story, which is also an example and an excerpt from your book so that we can when we talk about Harbor Tour, everybody knows what we're talking about.
Yeah, so I'm I'll go a little bit sideways here first, and then I'll retell that. So I was having a conversation with actually a customer a few days ago, and the person said something to the effect of, "And everybody has to learn the golden demo, the golden demo." And every time I hear that phrase, I cringe because what it says is that everybody's going to learn that demo. And what that means is everybody's going to do what?
The same demo.
They're going to repeat that demo over and over and over because it's the demo they know. And it's the demo in many cases they've been told to do in almost every situation. So this is 162 years ago. I'm in Germany doing a great demo workshop, and I'm describing a typical traditional demo, long linear demo. And as I'm partway through it, a woman in the front jumps up, literally jumps up and says, "Ah, you mean the Harbor Tour?" And I looked at her quizzically and said, "I'm sorry, I've never heard this term before." And she says, she actually sounded like this. She says, you take the customer, you put them on the boat, they cannot get off. And she says, then you drive them around the harbor for 3 hours, continually asking them, have you seen anything you like so far? And everybody in the room started to laugh. And in the German tradition, they were knocking their knuckles on the tables because it was something very meaningful to them. And I said, do you mind if I harvest that term? That is terrific. It's the perfect description of a painful linear traditional demo. You're stuck in that demo. You can't leave, and you're not seeing anything you're interested in. It would be like going to San Francisco, boarding a tour boat, and being driven around for 3 hours in the thick fog.
Yes, you're stuck
So
on
that's
Z boat.
you're stuck in the boat. So yeah, that's
So with that in mind then, so now everybody understands what it is and can probably start to understand a little bit about what the challenges are. But let's talk about what are the causes for and the problems with doing that default Harbor Tour, which again, you said golden demo, another one of those terms that's got the opposite meaning now. I mean, it intends to be good, but it's actually something that could be very, very dangerous, let's say. So what about that and where the salesperson kicks off the meeting and says, I'm going to let my SE take it away, and off they go with the Z Harbor Tour or Z Golden Demo.
Well, the biggest mistake there is no discovery. And let's talk about that for a moment, because in the absence of sufficient discovery, how can you possibly do anything other than either, well, we have a solution and Art knows, a vision generation demo potentially with the menu approach method. But in the absence of discovery, you can't go any deeper than literally about 6 minutes. It's just, you're guessing. And guessing is like that word assume, which if you break it apart appropriately, gives you the right answer. So the discovery, discovery today is largely insufficient. I've and Art have both listened to probably hundreds, maybe more, discovery calls, and the average discovery call is scheduled for 30 minutes. There's 5 minutes of rapport, as in, hey, looks like you've got photographs behind you on the wall. Tell me about them.
Mm-hmm.
Confirmation of the prospect's major pain. Ah, I understand you said you're looking for a CRM system. Discussion of a little bit of the required tech stack. Are you looking for a SaaS solution, and you have, or would you prefer something on your own servers? How do you feel about those kinds of things? And that's it. You just went through a discovery call. You're now at about the 12 to 15 minute mark. And what do you think that the sales team does at that point?
Yeah, just starts to show all the stuff, of
They
course,
start. They go
because it's
through
great. It's great stuff.
a corporate overview presentation for about 5 to 7 minutes, and
Mm-hmm.
then they go through a product overview presentation and or a demo to consume the balance of that 30 minutes. And people wonder why demos are out of alignment. So going back into discovery, you've got to understand for each individual job title that is significant, what their situation is. And in Great Demo, we use a construct called a situation slide, which enables us to capture the key elements of situational information that we need to be able to put together and deliver a demo that's really going to resonate with each of those individual job titles. And just to give you a sense, if you were looking at a CRM system, there are easily 13 distinct job titles that might be involved, ranging from CRO to salesperson, from head of pre-sales to pre-sales IC, to enablement and operations or sales operations, to marketing head, to marketing player, and on and on. So it's critically important to get the discovery elements down first. Let me just pause there and
Yeah.
see what you
No,
think.
that's perfect. And we'll get to the situation slide a little bit more after the break. But you talked about resonating with the audience stakeholders and the different types of stakeholders. So what is the challenge of that and the difficulty of even closing or getting them to take action if discovery had not been done and then this show up and throw up demo happens?
Well, let's go back to the earth-shattering experience that we suffered through. At that time, I was leading an organization of about 100 people, and I was also leading sales and renewals, if you will. And so what I needed out of a CRM system were basically three things. I need to see this quarter's forecast, I need to see the pipeline going forward, and I need to see the key deals, the key opportunities to see whether or not people needed help, needed coaching, whatsoever. 2 hours of demos from each of these 5 vendors. I never saw those screens. They all started with, let me show you how to enter a record into the CRM system. Let me show you how to clone that record and add another person and add some notes. Let's run a marketing campaign. Let's take a look at things from sales. Never saw the deliverables that I needed. So I was the leader. They never satisfied my needs. What's the probability they're going to get an order from me and be able to, quote unquote, close the business? And by the way, only the customer can actually close the business.
That's right. Yeah. And so in the meantime, waste of their time, waste of your time, bad first impression. I mean, the list goes on. There's a lot of damage that could be done when the proper discovery isn't done, and recognizing who the stakeholder is that you're talking with to help them through their buying process and what they're trying to do. Very briefly, because we're about to come up to a break here. What about when stories are attempted that don't land or aren't even stories per se? And we could probably talk about this more after the break in terms of an example or what is a story. But very briefly, what is the impact of that, especially with your suspending disbelief book that you've got now?
I did a post a week or two ago that said something to the effect of, we're telling lots of stories, but not getting the business. And the major reason is, I think people's understanding and definition of what a good, compelling story is inaccurate. A feature, benefit, value statement is not a story. And we come back from break. Let's talk about this in a little more detail. It's definitely worth peeling back the layers.
That sounds like a plan. All right, we'll be back in about 2 minutes with Peter Cohan. Misalignment within your sales team or with the client stalls deals and creates unnecessary friction for you and the client, resulting in up to 37% lower win rate. If you're in pre-sales, sales, sales management, or sales enablement, and you'd like to increase revenues, win rate, margins, client satisfaction, and stay competitive, this show is for you. Hi, I'm Art Fromm, host of the Making Seamless Sales Show. Please join me live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on talkradio.nyc.
Hey everybody, it's Tommy D, the Nonprofit Sector Connector, coming at you from my attic. Each week here on talkradio.nyc, I host the program Philanthropy in Focus. Nonprofits impact us each and every day, and it's my focus to help them amplify their message and tell their story. Listen each week at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Linda Marcanico. The A Train to Sedona is a memoir about my journey to love and compassion. It's also the name of my new broadcast on Wednesdays at 12 noon. When we are spiritual, we embrace possibilities and ideas, which strengthen our mind, body, spirit, health, and wisdom. On the A Train to Sedona broadcast, I plan to interview guests who embrace these expansive practices. Join us on Wednesdays at 12 noon on Talk Radio New York City.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back, everybody. We're here with Peter Cohan, author of The Great Demo, Doing Discovery and Suspending Disbelief. And what we were talking about is the challenges of harbor tours and not doing proper discovery. So, Peter, let's go ahead and continue with the idea that you introduced in the previous segment, which was the idea of, and am I seeing you? Yes, I'm seeing you here. All right. The idea of the situation slide. So what are some of the ways that we can communicate value to the business decision makers and technical decision makers, connecting the product and business results, and the way the situation slide can help that as both the outcome of discovery and the start of the demo, and perhaps reviewing what the components of the situation slide are would be helpful for the audience in case they don't know it.
Sure. So, great demo situation slide focuses on an individual job title and his or her situation, hence the term situation slide. So, if you've got a head of sales in, for example, a mid-sized SaaS software company, that would be the job title in the industry. The next level, or the next important thing, is what is that person's top level challenge? How do they know at the end of the year that they have achieved success? So in the case of a head of sales, it's most likely hitting their numbers on a quarterly and annual basis. And the inability to do so is what makes it a critical business issue. Below that are the problems or reasons that are getting in the way of making it a challenge. So insufficient leads, poor demos, poor discovery, poor sales process, not enabling a buyer. Those could all be problems or reasons that contribute to his or her difficulty in making the numbers. Below that are the specific capabilities that this person feels or says that they need to solve the problem. For example, it could be sales skills training, it could be demo skills training, it could be discovery skills training, it could be whatever. But those are the capabilities that are discussed and agreed upon with the prospect of what he or she feels they need. The next is the value associated with making the change. We call that the delta. It's the difference between the way things are currently and the way things are desired to be or need to be with a solution in place. And then the final element, great name for a movie, the fifth element, is the timeline, a critical date, a date by when the prospect needs to have a solution in place and the driving force that is behind it. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I have to share with you that a critical date is not your end of quarter, it's the prospect's critical date.
Right now, so if those are, and as everybody thinks about that, those are some of the elements of perhaps some methodologies that you're already using, and this puts it all into a succinct way for what I would call the target of discovery. So this situation slide should be what discovery results in understanding, and then help us out with what that is, how that helps then set up for preparation of the demo and then actual presentation of the demo.
Well, let's start with the specific capabilities, because the list of specific capabilities are exactly that. It's not, and I need a tool. It's what reports, what deliverables do I need out of this software package? So going back to the CRM system and my personal experience, I said it was 3 sets of information. I needed dashboards or reports for the current forecast, the pipeline, and the key deals. That's what I needed out of the system. Those are the specific capabilities that I wanted to see. And the person showing me a demo, if he wants my business, should show those 3 things right up front. Satisfy what I'm looking for, make sure that I'm comfortable with that. And then, you know what? He or she may be done with the demo for me, because that's all I needed to see. Let me share a story. Yeah. Are you familiar with, the way I like to introduce this story is, are you interested in hearing the true story as related to me by a comrade of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory?
Of course, Peter, please.
It's called the credit card story, and it's a gentleman that actually went through one of the workshops that we taught. He was in oil and gas. First name was Tim, and he was meeting with a small customer up in Calgary, but an important customer, a sizable opportunity. He'd done his job in discovery and was a face-to-face meeting with the CEO of this little company and a few members of the CEO's team. Tim started the demo by reviewing the situation slide information, which is what we recommend. The CEO said, yep, you're spot on. And in fact, things are even worse now than they were before. Tim said, I understand. And then Tim immediately showed, I think it was 3 dashboards that the CEO wanted and needed to basically track his progress, measure his results, and see what was going on. And the CEO took his wallet out of his pocket, opened it up, took out a credit card, slid it across the table to Tim. Tim looked at it and thought, I've got this. This sale is done. However, he got overexcited. Mm-hmm. He could have just, and he should have just finished the demo at that point, but he didn't. He thought, wow, I've got so much more cool stuff to show the CEO. And he did. He showed this capability and that capability. He found it very odd, Tim did, that as he showed more and more, the CEO had started with a big smile, and it got smaller and smaller and began to turn downwards into a frown. In fact, after a few minutes, the CEO reached back out across the table and gently drew his credit card back, put it in his wallet, and put it away. No sale. Mm-hmm. So what's the moral there? By the way, I love that story. That's called the credit card story. It's in Suspending Disbelief, which everybody should have and read, because it's a fast, simple way to get 40 some odd years of experience under your belt and in your brains. So what's the moral of the story?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to specific capabilities. One of the hardest things to do is not to know what to put into the demo. It's what to take out of the demo. And we want to put everything in it. So specific capabilities help with what should come out so that we keep in only the essence of what's needed. And, it's funny because up until the point where the credit card started to be withdrawn, that was exactly the situation that I was in, that I was talking about at the first segment, because in 6 minutes, this SVP of sales said, that's exactly what I need now. Go make it happen with the team, and yeah. I knew not to continue talking. In fact, funny part of that story is I'd actually mocked up something that I couldn't have shown him more detail if he had wanted it. So I'm kind of glad he didn't ask more questions, but that's the essence of it. Don't oversell. Don't sell past the sale. That's a big lesson.
I think it was Michael Bosworth who coined the term "stop selling when the customer is ready to buy."
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But there's another lesson. There's another lesson here, and why I had people ask this question. So why did the CEO drag the credit card back? And the answer is because the more that Tim showed in that demo, the more Tim was buying it back. In other words, he was showing capabilities that the CEO didn't need and didn't want to pay for. And the CEO reached reached the point where he thought, I'm paying too much for this, for those few capabilities, and I'm not going to use all this other stuff. So I'm not going to buy it.
Yeah.
So showing things that the customer doesn't need is also known as buying it back.
Yeah. We've called it overkill as well. It's like, I don't need all this stuff. Why now? I feel like I'm paying too much for all this stuff, and so we don't want to be in that situation.
And that is where you will actually hear prospects say, when it's time to negotiate that license agreement, you showed us a lot of stuff we're not going to use, so you need to give us a discount.
Yes. Now, so the situation slide isn't just for pre-sales though, and it's not just about knowing how to do the demo. How does it help with the, pre-sales and sales being on the same page, for example, and even
Well,
divide and conquering with different levels and types of stakeholders.
so it literally puts the selling team on the same page, whether it's a single individual or a team of 20. You're able to work from the same simple construct to understand, oh, well, for this demo, for this person, here's what we need to show, and we're holding everything else in reserve. For this person, same company, but different part of the demo meeting or a different demo, here's what we need to show, and we hold all this stuff back. So, the example would be, again, a CRO needs to see certain reports. Marketing folks, they need to see campaigns and lead gen and related type things, totally different than what a CRO or the sales side of the house needs.
So when it comes to the situation slide, then it's about that person. It's about what their critical business issue is. The problems and reasons are addressed during the demo, showing just the specific capabilities. Obviously talking about the business benefit they're getting out of it. Where you mentioned that a critical date is not the end of our quarter, where does that come in, and what does that help to do to drive the deal forward and get some action on the part of the stakeholder?
Once you know a prospect's critical date, you are able to work backwards in time from that date to manage implementation, training, rollout, to put that on a timeline, a calendar, so that you and your prospect then can march together. This is really a key element of buyer enablement. You can march together towards enabling that prospect to achieve that critical date. So to give a small example, the prospect says, if we don't have a new solution in place by the end of the year, we're going to have to pay for another year's license of the old system. And you say, okay, terrific. So we need to have a solution in place by the end of the year. Let's back up a couple of weeks from that so that we're really ready to go in mid-December. And then you come back, because nobody's going to do anything for the last 2 weeks of the year except for desperate salespeople. And then you can move back. Well, let's talk about how long it takes to train people. Let's talk about moving the data over. Let's talk about implementation. Gee, there's configuration to take place. Oh, in order for you to go live on December 15th, it looks like we actually need to have the licenses done by October 15th. Why, that's 13 days from now. And now you have a mutual plan on how to move forward.
Now that should be gold to every salesperson listening, because this is the way that you can compel your buyer. You said it earlier, Peter, we don't close them, they close themselves. So whoever the stakeholder is, help them realize that in order to get to their critical date, which was found out in discovery, confirmed in the situation slide, and then brought up as the way to move them forward, that allows you as the salesperson to get a close that addresses their needs, and that will address your needs. So that alone is something that, as far as the situation slide for sales, that is a great way to compel action on the part of the buyer. We only have about a minute left here, Peter. Any concluding remarks, and then how to contact you? Your contact information will also be in the show notes and all that, but what would you like to wrap this up with in the last minute here, and how to contact you?
Well, contacting me is easy and direct. We have a greatdemo.com website, and of course, I can be reached directly at pcohan, P-C-O-H-A-N, at greatdemo.com. I would also say the following. I am at a point in my career where I am more than happy to coach people individually, to help folks, to bounce ideas off of people. I've been doing this rather frequently. If you've got a question about material in any of my books, if you've got a question about any of the training that you may have experienced or undergone from Great Demo during discovery, if you have an idea that you'd like to bounce, I am available for you. Just reach out. Happy to try to help.
Yes. And again, Peter, thank you so much, not only for being here, but just being a great partner and allowing me to highlight some of the Great Demo methodology as part of that whole portfolio of offerings, and contributing to the book. And we're looking forward to hearing more and seeing more. So thanks. And everybody follow Peter, take him up on his offer. You won't regret it. It's going to be great. Thanks so much, Peter.
Thanks, folks. Bye now. Thanks, Art.
On Frank About Health, we're not just talking healthcare. We're managing disruption and innovation. Over the last 4 years, I've taken you from epilepsy and COVID to mental health, caregiving, and now the front lines of healthcare transformation. Stay tuned for a healthier future as we bring on the innovators, professionals, storytellers, and advocates who show you how to own your healthcare every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
Ready to serve up success with a splash? Hi, I'm Bruce Kramer, aka the corporate cockroach.
I'm the Renaissance woman, Angie Snowball.
And I'm your strategy doctor, Dr. Navtesh Desange, inviting you to serving up success with a splash.
Join us as we shake things up with real talk and real strategies centered around awareness, action, and accountability.
And yes, there really is a cocktail involved. Please join us and sip your way to success.
Serving up success with a splash, where wisdom meets happy hours. Cheers!
Cheers!
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back, everybody. And again, thank you so much to Peter for the insights and reinforcements regarding the proper way to do discovery and then use that to help formulate the demo and incorporate stories. So for this segment, as any of you who are frequent viewers know, I call it Dear Artie, which I know is a little corny, but it's patterned after the old newspaper columnist Dear Abby. So that's why I came up with Dear Artie, because she talked about and answered viewers' questions about life. And I'm doing this to answer viewer and listeners' questions about sales. So I went through my archives and I found some that were directly related to our topic that can help to further explore a bit of what Peter and I just covered. The first question is, if the harbor tour approach is so problematic, how do you get sales reps to actually do the discovery work instead of just defaulting to handing off to the SE? Now, this is one that involves a couple different levels. The one thing is that management really needs to change the incentive structure and provide proper training. When I shared last week with Jerry Timmis that when I was in charge of the pre-sales resources at Parametric Technology, we were subscribing at that time to Medic. That's where it was invented. And I was given permission by management to ask for that information for the sole purpose that it would avoid harbor tours. Now, we didn't call them harbor tours then. We didn't know about that. We just were doing the right things, but it has to be an incentive structure and then proper training and then a commitment that this is something that's going to be used to help everybody. I also advocate that pre-sales needs to sell sales on the idea of doing discovery. Yes, sell your salesperson. So if you're in pre-sales, this is what you can help sales do, which will help them. I have an article on my webpage. If you go, again, to teamsalesdevelopment.com to the events and articles page, there is an article that I wrote, and I just recently updated it, called Selling Discovery. And it's about the way and some methods you can use to sell that internally. And sometimes we need to sell it to the client because they are sometimes the ones, as we saw last week, who are insisting on a harbor tour. They don't even know what they're asking for. And they're like, I just want to see the product. And then we tend to go, okay, we'll just show you the product. So that can be dangerous, as we've talked about today. So many sales reps also avoid discovery because they may lack the confidence in their technical knowledge, or they fear that they'll say something wrong. This is where the cross-functional teams, the SEs and the AMs working together seamlessly, and cross-functional training, such as what we provide, including great demo as part of it and other things, where sales can learn enough technical context to have a meaningful discovery, and SEs or pre-sales learn the business impact questions to ask. So discovery really does need to be a required gate in the sales process, or better yet, in the equipping the buyer with their process. And no demo without a completed qualification and discovery summary, aka the situation slide, should be delivered. It's a high bar to set, but it's very important. Without addressing this core issue, you'll keep getting the same dysfunctional handoffs. Sales reps need to understand that discovery is not just nice to have, it's what separates successful deals from technical wins that go nowhere. And by the way, everybody, SEs are wonderful and great and amazing, but they can't rescue every poorly qualified opportunity or discovery that's missing. That's going to catch up with you eventually. So the second question is, let me skip down here for a second here. On that same note, as far as partnership, if SEs are naturally trusted by customers, and I like to say that SEs are like the bartender or like the hairdresser, people will tell them anything. SEs are like that. And so if SEs are naturally trusted by customers like bartenders, how do you prevent them from accidentally undermining the sales process by being too helpful or giving away too much information? And this is why sometimes sales, again, doesn't like to have pre-sales involved in very early discovery. And I'm not advocating that pre-sales needs to get involved in early discovery all the time. There is sometimes too much involvement early on. It has to be properly qualified as a deal that's, confirmed to be positive for your company, and that the client is serious enough that they want to move forward, and that you've discovered enough information to get the discussion started. So the idea here is that this is where the situation slide becomes critical. The situation slide, as outlined by Peter and in the Great Demo Methodology, keeps everybody focused on the agreed upon business outcome. Remember, it's a business outcome, critical business issue for each stakeholder. The other thing that's interesting about that is, and I say this all the time about sales teams working from the top down and the bottom up and intersecting very healthily at the middle, is that we oftentimes have a view of the client they can't even have themselves. They are so siloed themselves, or so focused just on what's going on for that day or at that moment, they often don't see the bigger picture. So by connecting and finding out what is this person doing and how is that connected with this, and in Peter's Doing Discovery book, there's a lot about implication questions and questions that can lead to how others are affected. Or a great question to ask is, if this doesn't happen or this doesn't get fixed, who is impacted by it? So what we wind up doing as a sales team, and again, both pre-sales and sales working together as we move through technical and business discovery, we get to figure out what that pyramid of needs looks like. And as a result, we are providing a great service to our clients. I've laid out a pyramid of needs before with some of the interconnections, and the client's like, "That's amazing. Can I keep that?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's you, that's yours. So yes, you can keep that." So this is something that we could do. Therefore, a couple suggestions is, again, situation slide, use that as a central grounding for everybody. It keeps everybody focused on the agreed upon business outcomes. And that's the only thing that matters, by the way, is the business outcomes. We've talked about this before many times, and you've seen me talk about this on some of my other talks. Our solutions have no inherent value. It's only about the perception of value in the eyes of the buyer, and that is going to be based on their personal outcomes, their business outcomes, and even the outcomes, in terms of the team. So SEs, we want to train SEs to redirect technical curiosity that they have back to business impact. Always asking the question of, so what? Or what does this do for them? Or why would they care about it? So, things like, if somebody asks a technical question, we could say, "That's a great technical question. Yes, we can do that." So you can acknowledge the technology capability. More importantly, how would that capability help you achieve the business or return on investment targets we discussed? So part of our job is, even during a demo, is if there's a question that comes up, redirect it back to what those business needs are. And the key is sales leveraging the trust of the client in the SE in order to advance the sale together, not just about satisfying technical curiosity. So whereas the SEs often get pulled into technical rabbit holes because they want to be more helpful, this can derail the business conversation. So the goal is to use that trusted advisor status strategically and use the situation slide strategically as the outcome of discovery and the plan for how you will work together to move forward with the customer's needs. Then you can share concerns and objections with the SE, and they won't, with SE, sometimes they don't want to tell the sales reps, but this intelligence needs to flow back so that we can advance the opportunity, not just solve technical puzzles. So there's a couple of questions and a few responses that you could take away what you want to in terms of the goodness, how that applies to your situation. So that's going to do it for today's show as we begin to wrap up here. Thanks again to Peter Cohan for sharing his ideas. Please check out the resources on the show page. Before you go, again, check out the Team Sales Development website, including the events page, for details about previous and upcoming events. Contact me to discuss your plans for sales kickoffs, seminars, other events to improve your sales results for your team. I offer keynote seminars, workshops, and CRM integrated tools that are proven to help sales sell and help avoid the rush to demo. Please like, share, subscribe, and comment on the show. Listen to the replays on your favorite channel or podcast streaming service. And then join me next week at 7 p.m. Eastern when I talk with Yumi Peterson, formerly of Palo Alto Networks, now with Cato Networks, as we talk about her experiences in running SDR, BDR teams and field sales and the way that those teams have been able to work with pre-sales in a way that moves the sale forward quickly and achieves the sales outcomes, her critical business issue. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.